The other day, New York Rangers goaltender Igor Shesterkin made headlines by apparently, according to Kevin Weekes, turning down an 8-year, $88 million contract extension from the New York Rangers. That offer from the Rangers works out to a cap hit of $11 million per season, which would have made Igor Shesterkin the highest paid goaltender in NHL history. Now, since this report, Kevin Weekes was on the NHL Network and he said, "I think there's a deal to be done sooner rather than later, and that'll be best for all parties." So it doesn't sound like there's any concern that Igor Shesterkin is going to head to unrestricted free agency at the end of the season, but as of today, he is still unsigned, and $88 million is a pretty massive offer to turn down, so it already kind of got me thinking about the upcoming free agency class, even though it's still a full season away. So I thought for today's video, it would be fun to take a way too early look at the 2025 NHL unrestricted free agent class, go over some of the biggest names that are set to hit the open market, make some predictions, all that fun stuff. If you're new here and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are trying to hit 100,000 subscribers this NHL season. So with that all being said, we might as well start off with Igor Shesterkin, who is the reason that I'm making this video, the reason that I'm already thinking about 2025 NHL free agency. Shesterkin has been one of the absolute best goaltenders in the entire NHL ever since he stepped foot in the league and played his first games back in the 2019-20 season. He won the Vezina Trophy in 2022 as the league's best goaltender, a season that at the time a lot of people were calling one of the best in NHL history from a goaltender. No doubt about it, Igor Shesterkin deserves a massive raise from his current cap hit, which is just $5.7 million, and based off of what was reported by Kevin Weekes, the Rangers did in fact offer him a massive raise, a contract that would have almost doubled his annual cap hit. I'll be honest, pretty surprised that Igor Shesterkin would turn down an offer of that magnitude. The New York Rangers are a fantastic team, they have been for years, and Igor Shesterkin is a big reason for that, so I don't see any reason why he would want to leave. Back in September, when he was asked about heading into the final year of his contract, he said, "I love the team, I love the fans, so of course it will be great to stay here, but you never know what's going to happen." This next contract will obviously be the biggest contract Shesterkin signs in his NHL career. It sounds like it's going to be the biggest contract given to a goaltender in NHL history. If he were to make it to the open market, there would obviously be teams lining up for his services, lining up to throw insane amounts of money at him. So my guess is Shesterkin and his agent just want to leverage this situation as best as possible and ensure that he gets as much as he possibly can on his next contract. It's going to be very interesting to see what the dollar amount comes in at on that next contract. It's safe to assume it's going to be more than $88 million. One thing's for sure, Igor Shesterkin's next contract is absolutely going to change the market for goaltenders. Moving on now to who in my opinion is the best forward that is set to hit unrestricted free agency this summer, Mikko Rantanen of the Colorado Avalanche. To me, Mikko Rantanen is one of the most underrated superstars in the entire NHL. He's had back-to-back 40-plus goal, 100-plus point seasons. He's a Stanley Cup champion, a proven playoff performer. In terms of points per game in the playoffs, he's actually statistically one of the best playoff performers in NHL history, and he's off to a damn good start this season as well, as he scored a hat-trick in Colorado's first game of the season last night against the Vegas Golden Knights. If I had to guess, I think Mikko Rantanen, of all the players we're going to talk about in this video, will sign the biggest contract, even bigger than whatever Igor Shesterkin's next contract looks like. And I do feel like the team that ends up signing Rantanen to that next contract will be the Colorado Avalanche. Avalanche GM Chris McFarland was asked the other day about Rantanen's contract situation, and he said that he has no concern about it going into the season, and that these are not easy deals to do. It's hard to imagine Rantanen wanting to leave Colorado. It's a great situation for him. He's won there. Him and McKinnon are one of the most dominant duos in the entire NHL. The only way that I could see this going south and Rantanen leaving in free agency is if the Avalanche lowball him or he feels disrespected by a contract offer from Colorado, and I just don't see that happening. Players the caliber of Mikko Rantanen are not the kind of players you mess around with in contract negotiations. My prediction for what the dollar amount could look like on Rantanen's next deal, seeing as McKinnon's cap hit is $12.6 million per season, for Rantanen, I would go somewhere between $12 million or $12.5. I can't see the Avalanche giving him more than Nathan McKinnon, but I do feel like it'll be right around there. Moving on now to another superstar winger who is set to hit the open market at the end of the season, Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Mitch Marner saga has been well documented. We've talked about Marner at length on this channel throughout the course of the summer. His name was heavily involved in trade rumors all summer long. As we know now, he obviously was not traded, and at this point, I don't think he's going to be. I can't imagine the Leafs would even entertain the idea of trading him mid-season, so I think there's two outcomes here. he signs an extension in Toronto or he leaves as a free agent in the summer. And one thing that I kept saying all summer long is that if Mitch Marner does in fact start the season as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, then I truly believe he will end up signing an extension. And my reason for thinking that way is I feel like it would have been irresponsible for Maple Leafs GM Brad Treliving not to trade Mitch Marner at some point in the offseason if he didn't think they could come to terms on an extension. The fact Mitch Marner started this season on the Maple Leafs to me screams the Maple Leafs front office believe they can get something done. Mitch Marner is not the kind of player you just want to let walk in free agency. That would be a complete disaster for the Maple Leafs. I know Mitch Marner is overrated in the eyes of a lot of people. He's a bit of a polarizing player, and he's definitely had some disappointing playoff appearances throughout his career, but at the end of the day, this is an elite winger that can score at a 100-point pace and play a strong 200-foot game, and players like that do not come around very often, and they definitely don't become available very often. So if Mitch Marner does hit the open market this summer, you can bet there is going to be teams lining up to give him a massive contract. A contract potentially similar to what Rantanen's next contract would look like, in that $12 million per season range. Next up, we might as well talk about another big name on the Maple Leafs that is set to become an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, and that player is former captain John Tavares. The first player that we've talked about thus far in this video that I do not feel like is in for a raise on their next contract. Tavares' current cap hit is $11 million. On his next deal, I think that cap hit will likely be cut in half. He's obviously lost a step. He's not the player he was when he first signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but don't get it twisted, he is still a very effective player. He's coming off of a season in which he scored 29 goals and put up 65 points. My guess is John Tavares ends up re-signing in Toronto. It sounds like he's a guy who wants to end his career as a Maple Leaf, and I think he probably ends up extending on a pretty team-friendly deal. It's not like John Tavares' bank account is hurting. He's been well compensated for his time in Toronto so far. My prediction for what his next contract will look like for the Maple Leafs, I'll go somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 years, $5 million per season. Let's talk about a couple of defensemen now, starting off with Stanley Cup champion Aaron Ekblad of the Florida Panthers. His current cap hit is $7.5 million. Hard to say if he's going to be able to get more than that on his next deal. I would say no. I think maybe it'll come in around 6.5 to 7 mil. His offense has taken a bit of a step back over the last few seasons, but he has dealt with his fair share of injuries, and he had taken a bit of a back seat in terms of power play usage to Brandon Montour over those last few seasons. The defensive analytics have looked good. Aaron Ekblad is definitely still a very strong two-way, minute-munching top four defenseman, and especially as a right shot, players like that are highly coveted in free agency, and oftentimes we see right shot defensemen get overpaid in free agency. Now, will Aaron Ekblad make it to unrestricted free agency? My prediction is no. I can't imagine the Florida Panthers want to lose Aaron Ekblad just 1 year after they lost Brandon Montour in free agency. If you take Aaron Ekblad off that blue line as well, you're then left with Gustav Forsling and not much else. So I think Florida is going to make it a priority to bring Aaron Ekblad back, and they'll likely get him at a pretty fair price. As we've seen with some of the recent extensions they've given out to players, they get team-friendly deals due to the fact that there's no state income tax in Florida. So my guess is Ekblad ends up extending in Florida. I think somebody like Sam Bennett, who's set to hit the open market at the end of the season, is a lot more likely to leave because Florida has a lot of their core forwards locked up already, and really the only defenseman they have locked up at this point is Gustav Forsling. Another big name defenseman who is also a Stanley Cup champion that is set to hit the open market is Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights. Shea Theodore's current cap hit is $5.2 million. I think he's probably in for a pretty significant raise from that, and unlike a lot of the other players we've talked about in this video so far, I feel like the most likely outcome for Shea Theodore is he ends up signing somewhere else as a free agent and does not extend in Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights are a team that is obviously very tight to the cap, and not only do they have Shea Theodore coming off the books at the end of the season, they also have two goaltenders that are pending UFAs in Adin Hill and Ilya Samsonov, so they're likely going to want to extend one of them, likely Adin Hill. After they traded for and extended Noah Hanifin last season, I feel like the writing was kind of on the wall for Shea Theodore heading into the final year of his deal. I just don't think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be able to afford to give Shea Theodore market value or what he'd be able to get on the open market. That is, unless they're able to work some cap magic like we've seen them do in the past. Maybe they're able to move on from a big contract or two. I know Alex Petrangelo's name was floated around a little bit in trade rumors throughout the summer, but at the end of the day, Alex Petrangelo has a full no move clause, so if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going anywhere. Moving on now to the final player we're going to talk about in today's video, we have Brock Boeser of the Vancouver Canucks, a current cap hit of $6.65 million. After the season he was just able to put together, scoring a career-high 40 goals and putting up 73 points in 81 games, you have to imagine he's due for a raise from that $6.65 million, and he's off to a good start this season as well, as he scored 2 goals in Vancouver's home opener last night. Now, Vancouver Canucks general manager Patrick Allvin did have some interesting things to say prior to training camp starting when he was asked about Brock Boeser and his contract. Patrick Allvin said for now his main focus is to come back here and play to the level that he showed last year and even be more consistent. I told him he could have scored 50 goals, but I felt like he took his foot off the gas when he scored 30, and we want to see him pushing through. So definitely some pretty interesting comments to make about one of your star forwards who just had a career year. I don't think he meant any ill will towards Brock Boeser by saying that. I feel like he probably just meant that he thinks there's another level that Brock Boeser can get to. I'm sure the Canucks would like to extend Brock Boeser, but I don't think it's a given that that's what happens. Vancouver doesn't have a ton of money coming off the books at the end of the season. Brock Boeser is their biggest contract that is up, and that's $6.65 million, like I said. But you also have to factor in the buyout penalty for Oliver Ekman-Larsson actually goes up to almost $5 million next season. One team that I think makes a ton of sense for Brock Boeser if he does make it to free agency is the Minnesota Wild. He was born and raised in Minnesota. He played his college hockey at the University of North Dakota, which is very close to home. And the Minnesota Wild are a team that are going to have an abundance of cap space open up this summer, and they could definitely use the secondary scoring that Brock Boeser could provide. So they're a team I would keep an eye on if Brock Boeser does not end up extending in Vancouver. So that is going to wrap up today's video looking ahead to the 2025 NHL free agent class. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so be sure to let me know your predictions for all the players we talked about down below in the comments. Do you think they're going to extend with their current team? Do you think they're going to leave in free agency? What do you think their next contract would look like? All that type of stuff. Sound off down below. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, if you made it all this way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave the video a like. That's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does actually help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all throughout the year, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.